This really is the era of mediocre quadrilogies, isn't it?
And why should I?
I mean, what's in it for me?
Sheesh.
Hey guys, it's the Pink King here. Despicable Me. I don't care what place in the world you come from or how old you are, everyone has seen at least one of these movies in their life. Originally starting in 2010, Despicable Me was the first ever Illumination movie and would ultimately become their version of Toy Story, as it's not only their biggest franchise but also the film that at first went against the grain, with it being about a villain who ultimately, over the course of the film, changes their ways to become a good guy. Ironically, the same concept as another film from that time. But most of you probably know this. You know Gru, you know the Gorals, and of course, you know the Minions. However, seeing as Despicable Me 4 is here, I wanted to recap every movie in this series and see if it was actually bad as everyone said it was. And in doing so, I have come to a realization. These movies weren't always that bad. They weren't always just cheap marketing ploys or bland and hollow advertisements. This franchise actually used to be pretty good, great even. And so today I want to answer a question I've had for a while now. What ruined Despicable Me? First, we need to establish what exactly made the franchise, specifically the first movie, so good to begin with. Well, it essentially boils down to one thing. They had to try. Yeah, since they were new and had tough competition like Disney and DreamWorks, Illumination really needed to hit big if they were going to be sustainable. And that shows in this movie. Something I found so surprising was the tonal whiplash I got from watching the first movie compared to its follow-ups, because the first movie was actually pretty mean-spirited. In the best way possible, it had a surprising amount of dark humor and visual gags, and even the tone was pretty much way different. The film followed Gru as a villain, so portrayed him very cruelly. His behaviour was very deadpan and unempathetic, something I felt was heightened by Steve Carell's voice. Something about it just worked for me. But the film wasn't only cruelty, because they knew the only way they could make all that stuff work was with something that could contrast it. Something like being more emotional and yet powerful, such as the Gorals. I forgot how powerful these girls were in this movie. Not only did they play a major role, they each had a unique personality, personalities of which contrasted Gru's perfectly, so as they got closer it felt much more genuine and most of all engaging. And that's why this movie works so well. It had a fairly dark, outlandish sort of side with the villainy, but it contrasted it with the very genuine and emotional heart, with the found family aspect. Another reason why this movie works so well is because of its uniqueness. Yeah, this movie's actually pretty creative, not only in its jokes, which still get a laugh out of me even to this day, but even with its animation, which of course it being outdated, but surprisingly more charming than anything they've done recently, because they got weird with it, like Gru's house being the most over-the-top evil mansion ever compared to its pretty normal neighborhood. Also with the weapons, the gadgets, the characters. Despite this movie looking outdated, it really had fun with what they could do. So not only is it more interesting to look at, but it catches your eyes and sticks in your brain more. Then of course, you have the actually pretty smart idea to have Gru adopt the girls. Not only is it a good message, but it's very different to a lot of other stuff at the time. The idea of a supervillain adopting 3 girls to do his bidding is something very sweet, and seeing the effect that it has on him throughout the film was so interesting and yet genuine. It was sweet to watch. So yeah, I still really like the first movie. Although I'd say it's weaker compared to stuff like Megamind, which I felt used the concept a bit more creatively and had a much deeper message, this movie's still good. But its sequels, yeah, no. Now we gotta talk about what ruined this franchise. And in summary, it's pretty much the exact opposite of what made it good in the first place. Illumination already had their golden goose, so it no longer needed to try, now focusing more on playing it safe rather than telling a good story. You remember the girls? Yeah, they're no longer important, like, at all. No, I'm serious, you could cut them out of all the sequels, just completely erase them, and nothing would change. And the tone was completely abandoned, where before it was a blend between dark jokes and genuine emotion, they instead now try to only do the emotion and ironically make it less genuine in doing so. And probably the biggest tragedy of all was the fact that they abandoned all the creativity. Yeah, as these films go along, the more and more they start to look bland and interchangeable. The backgrounds start to look ordinary instead of stylized. Everyone's movements become much more grounded and boring. And the best way to tell this problem is to look at the antagonists. Compare Vector to Balthazar Brat. Vector looks like some nerdy villain, but he's more than that. He's egotistical, he's cocky, he's genuinely smart when he needs to be, and yet is so easy to fool. That's a lot of personality, hence why Vector is so beloved. But if you look at Brat, he's none of these things. Because now, he's just exactly what you think he is on the surface, that being just an 80s stereotype and nothing more. Whereas before, Vector was very interesting to watch because he had a lot more to him. Here, Brett is only one thing, and it's the most cliche thing imaginable and nothing more. So it just comes off as forgettable and boring. And don't even get me started on those Minions movies. They just feel like shorts that were forcibly stretched out into even more bland and forgettable stories. As there are no genuine stories in them, it's just stuff happening for the sake of it happening. And the reason why all this is happening because of one thing and one thing only: money. These movies are way too successful. Successful in fact that they don't need to try, because they're gonna be rewarded either way. And that sucks, honestly. This franchise started out as something surprisingly good and ended up being incredibly corporate. The closest thing I can compare it to is Vine. Yeah, you remember Vine. It started out as just people having fun to make people laugh, then it became far too sanitized and corporate, predictable, and thus lost the magic it initially had. And it's the same here. I know my job is to review things, but I don't think I will review Despicable Me 4, because I don't intend to watch it really. At this point, I can pretty much guarantee it's more of the same thing, just another bland and uncreative sequel that will make a shit ton of money it doesn't really deserve. What ruined Despicable Me? Well, a few things, but ultimately, it was the undeserved success. These movies doing the bare minimum but still being rewarded the most. That is what ruined this franchise, and I for one simply don't care about it anymore, nor will I ever care about it again. It's been the Pig King here. Be sure to like and subscribe. My goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and with your help, I could definitely do that. So please subscribe and like this video, and tell me in the comments, what do you guys think of the Despicable Me franchise? Do you enjoy it, or do you feel the same as I do? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I will see you all next time.